The first question I think is pretty easy. Why'd you become a police officer? It's such a hard, it can be a rewarding profession, but this is a tough profession. There's a reason a lot of us don't do it and don't want to do it. But why did you want to become one? Let's go down the line here, but Ed, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, well, so I came into this profession pretty late. I was 42 when I got hired, so that's pretty late. And yeah, I played lacrosse pretty much all my life. And through lacrosse and my business that I was running at the time, I met with through my business, Franklin County deputies. I worked closely with them. And a lot of those deputies are like, hey, you'd be a good police officer. You'd be a good deputy. You should come. I was like, no, I don't want to sit in the jail and do all this stuff. And then through lacrosse, I played in a adult men's league. And through that, I had a couple teammates that were Columbus police officers. And they're like, hey, if you ever want a career change or you want something, you should look into become a police officer. I think you'd become a good police officer. So I started investigating and looking into that. And about 3 or 4 years later, that's when I started signing up, because they kept encouraging me and said, hey, if things don't work out with the business, this is going to give you stability. You're in shape. You got a lot of life. You can talk to people. You care about people. So why don't you give it a try? So I did. So that's where I'm at, and I'm here.
I grew up on the other side of it. I think I'm in a really unique position because I may be the only convicted felon who became a police officer in the city of Columbus and maybe in the entire country. But as a result of my juvenile upbringing and things like that, I grew up on the other side of it. Everybody in my family is a felon. My mother, my father, my brothers, they're serving life in prison right now. And through an interaction during one of the felony arrests as a juvenile, through the interaction with that police officer, that's kind of what started changing my life around. And as a result of that, once I knew that I wasn't going to play football professionally, I just knew that I wanted to come do for some other troubled youth who grew up, screwed up in so many words, come do for some other troubled youth what that officer was able to do for me. And I had a lot of help in my life that got me to where I'm at today. And I figured there was no better way than to come be a police officer, not only anywhere, wanted to come be a police officer in the city that I grew up in, and again, just do for some other troubled youth what that officer did for me and what people in the community have done for me. So,
well, what brought me here to Columbus, or to the profession per se, I grew up on the east side of Detroit. My dad was a Detroit police officer. He retired as a sergeant. My dad became a police officer in the 60s. The late 60s. So my dad once told me the story how he worked in a cruiser the first 6 months of his career, and how his partner did not speak to him for 6 months because of the color of his skin. Basically, my dad broke color barriers. When my dad saved this person's life, of course, my dad became his best friend at that point. My dad, they went on a call, they heard a click. My dad recognized that to be a shotgun. He pushed his partner away as the round came through the door. So that guy could not stop speaking to my father. But one of the things that motivated me to be a police officer, because I saw the work that my dad did in the community and how it was effective. He's passed on now, but one of the reasons and what really encouraged me was he was always a father figure and a role model to people, and I wanted to carry on that tradition. And I became a Detroit police officer, served 7.5 years. I've been here for over 15 years, and out of the 8 children that my dad had, only 2 of us follow law enforcement. I have a brother that's a Secret Service agent that protects the president. So that's what, as a positive role model from an inner city, is the driving force for me. Because I grew up in an inner city that was crime infested. I remember the first night that I was away from home, and it was silent, and I could not sleep because I was used to going to bed to gunshots at night. It was too quiet for me. So being from the east side of Detroit, I felt like I wanted to make a difference. All my friends and family, they did what they did. You know, a lot of the friends that I grew up with, they're in prison, they're dead, you know. So I always looked at policing as a positive enforcement. And after it's all said and done, if I can just make one difference in somebody's life, that's all I want to be able to do. So that's what motivated me to become a police officer. So
23 years I've been on. Like Officer Chung said, I started late too. I was 33 when I came on. Wasn't really sure if I'd make it, but you know what? I did. I came on, I was in banking for 15 and a half years, and we had a special duty officer who would come in, and he was very positive, one of the nicest guys or nicest officers I've ever met. And he would speak to me every time that he'd come in, he'd talk to me, he'd get in my ear, hey, we need people like you to come in, people that know how to talk to people, people to know how to connect to people. And the next thing I know, I'm in the academy running. And still running.
And still running, I'm sure. Yeah, it doesn't stop. My first question outside of that, but it's good to always hear that it seems like most of you were, if not, it seems like all of you were inspired to become a police officer because of a police officer, an interaction you had with one or many. And I think that's inspiring. I wonder right now, with all that's going on, are you worried that with, you know, whether it's the rhetoric or what's happening, what people see, are you worried about being able to recruit good officers right now, or any officers, frankly? Does that worry you? Let me go to Officer White on this. I mean, you've seen policing for pretty much your whole life. Are you worried about that?
I am to some degree, because I think we get a lot of backlash, even as a black officer. You get a lot of backlash for becoming a police officer. And I think with the current climate that is going right now, it's not a motivating factor to become a police officer and be a person that's black or a minority. So because of that, it's very hard. It's hard to motivate people until it's up close and personal. You know, until you save somebody's life, or you're there doing something very positive that motivates them to be the police. So yes, it is very challenging to encourage people, especially in the current climate right now, because we're not looked at as we're being sacrificed because of one person's action, which is okay, but you got to be able to look at things in a whole, in a shell. I mean, and not a shell, and look at things very positively about what the positive things that the police department have done. So I think with the current climate right now, it's very difficult.
Kind of want to, off of that, I'll go to Officer Chung here. There is pretty much universal thoughts about what happened with George Floyd and what, you know, how that obviously isn't what that officer should have done. When you saw the video, or if you've seen the full video, it doesn't matter if you have seen the full video or not, what were your thoughts? I guess just whether just bad training, bad, you know, with racist. What were your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts. It all boils down to the tactics that were possibly used, or those became in question for me. You know, I don't look at the black, the white, or anything to that. Said, did that officer do his job? Did he do it appropriately? And I didn't even make judgment, because I don't know all the mitigating circumstances, and I didn't delve into, you know, everything, the precursor of that arrest situation either. You know, this is what's out there in the media. This is what's raged the nation. We're going to roll with it, and until the truth and the facts and everything come out, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's, you know, it's out there. You can't take back what's already been publicly posted. It's hard, you know, because it's already imprinted in everyone's minds. But in terms of the tactics or whatnot, I'm obviously not in agreement with that, because I know how we train out here. I know the things that, you know, our staff teaches us are, we have, you know, ongoing training and it's not part of what we're taught and learned. And just the different scenarios that we encounter every day where we may have to use force on somebody, or the situations where we have to subdue or restrain somebody, but how our training affects how we also deal with all that, which is, it's appropriate.
Not to mention, there were more than one officer that was involved in that, and I don't think any Columbus police officer would have stood around and allowed that to happen. I think we would have jumped in, what are you doing, what's going on here, and gotten him off of that. I mean, we all get excited, things happen, but I don't know any Columbus officer that would have stood around and let that just occur. I really don't.
And that's, and I'll get to the second.
Okay.
That I was talking to my friend who's a white Columbus police officer, and he hadn't seen the video when I first approached him about it when we were just playing golf. And I then sent it to him that night, or after I left the course. And I woke up that morning for my Thursday morning shift, and he flat out said, "This was wrong." He said, "That's not how we're taught." He said that's forget bad police, that's bad training, bad tactic. As you said, is that kind of what you saw as well, or?
Yeah, just like Lisa said, it was hard for me to watch. When I initially saw the video, I almost wanted to jump inside the video and push this guy off of this guy. And even the follow-up care was just totally wrong. I think even if a person were blind and even hear the audio tape of what happened, it would have been wrong. So no, we're not trained that way. I don't know how other officers walked around as this was going on. I don't know how you can watch the video and not become emotional. I could not watch the very end of it because I couldn't fight back the tears, because I knew at that point it would create a black eye, and that black eye would replicate throughout the whole nation. And now the nation's on fire because of one person's incident.
Yvonne, I want to pick up on that, because that's the thing, is that I don't know if we're having this discussion if that incident doesn't happen. I don't feel the need to call on former minority officers to ask your opinion on what's happening in our nation, because I don't know if it gets to that point. How much did it hurt to see what happened in Minneapolis now reflect poorly on policing in general, policing right here in Columbus?
Well, I think the difficult thing with that is we don't have those issues that you see in other big cities here in Columbus. And the reason why I'm not, talking down on other departments, but we are trained professionals here. We're professionals. We treat people professionally. We don't treat people like property. We don't treat people like animals. As a result, the kind of training that we receive here, the kind of resources that we have within the Columbus Division of Police, things like Minneapolis would never happen here. And like Officer McKissick and Officer White said, no Columbus police officer is going to stand around and let another officer do something like that. And I've seen much less, something that is a trained technique but probably isn't appropriate, where an officer will step in and check that officer, hey, not behind the scenes, not after the incident's over, but right then and there, hey, this is a little too far. Let's tone it down a bit. That's not what we're trained to do. Those types of things. So with that, it is very difficult, because what took place in Minneapolis has nothing to do with what happens here in Columbus, and as a result, we're feeling the heat, we're feeling the pressure, and I think had not what happened in Minneapolis, had that not happened, we wouldn't be sitting here today, and not only that, we wouldn't be where we're at regarding the police atmosphere, the political atmosphere, and I think it's very unfortunate that we are at the point we're at, where there's high tension between the community and police because it's unnecessary. And I think the city leaders in our city could have done a better job of coming out and just kind of setting the tone, saying, hey, what happened in Minneapolis happened there. It has nothing to do with what's going on here. And regarding racism and all of that nonsense, the police brutality and things like that, we don't stand for that, but we're also not going to stand for letting people run amok and destroy our streets and just kind of let what happened happen. And I think they should have come out, our city leaders should have come out and ended that immediately, but a month later it's still going on, unfortunately. So,
Officer McKissick, I want to come to you. Racism is prevalent, or it's in America, let's be honest. It has been for years. and whether we like it or not, it's going to be here for years as well. I just wonder a couple things. First off, have you ever experienced racism, discrimination in your job as a police officer? And two, would you feel comfortable calling it out an officer who may have done something or said something racist to a member of the community or to a fellow officer?
Absolutely. I have no problem at all expressing if you've done something wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all people. We really are. Everybody's asking to be treated with respect, the same respect that I would expect you to treat my mom or my dad when you went on that run. That's the same stuff that I would expect to be across the board. As far as discrimination, have I? Absolutely. I'm out here every day, and I work special duty a lot. I see different diversities, and to be quite honest, I am looked beyond with some of the diversified people that I do deal with. They look at me as like I'm not equal to them, and I'm an officer. I'm a peace officer. I'm an officer of the law, but they're still not giving that same respect because I'm a female. So I demand the respect because I went through everything that these guys went through. And I'm sworn just like everyone else. I just happen to be a female.
Or you're seeing it talked about, the systemic racism. It's, it's a very common phrase we're hearing right now, whether it's in the criminal justice system or in law enforcement, whatever it is. What needs to be changed? What do you hope is changed? I know it's a loaded question, but it's a very complex issue as well.
Exactly. Well, once again, we talk about the elephant that's in the room. Racism does exist. The only way to combat racism to me is basically to tell the truth and to educate. Because I told a friend of mine the other day, on Monday, trust is lost in buckets, right? But it's also gained in drops. So right now, because of what happened, we've lost the trust of a lot of people. So the only way to really get rid of racism, I heard an actor say recently, he said, well, we get rid of racism by stop talking about it. You can't. You can't talk about the obvious. But if you educate and you tell the truth and you're truthful, that is the first step that we need to make. And don't ignore it, because ignoring it is like ignoring a tack that's in your foot. You're not going to keep on walking around it because it's going to create pain, and then that's going to fester, and then it's going to grow, and then we're going to have an incident like we had in Minneapolis where it replicates throughout the whole nation. And then you got people coming out of the closet holding their signs up that's really openly racist, and they don't care. And that's where this systemic racism come from. But the flip side to that is there is cultural incompetency, where people are not willing to open up about different cultures because they're so hell-bent and centered on their culture, and they don't want to expound. So you got to get to know culture. Like everybody here, we all have cultural diversity classes. Well, take it serious. Take it serious and educate yourself about somebody's different. Because if I speak with my hands, that may be something culturally that I do, but that doesn't mean I'm being aggressive. That may be a way for me to communicate to you or convey an interest to you and to get your attention. So I think education is the key.
Yvonne, I want to go to you because you're from here. You're from Linden, correct? Yep. The Linden area where, sadly, there's probably a little bit more police activity there than I know you would like for different crimes and things like that. And I just wonder for the people that live there, for the young people that live there, what is your message to them in terms of cultivating a good relationship with the police that happen to be in that community, or that they may encounter at a protest, anything like that?
I'd say just be careful who you take advice from. Make sure they have fruit on their tree. And something else I'd say is that, especially for the young people, you need to actually really pay attention to what happens in politics. You need to really focus on who's in office and just kind of pay attention to the type of pandering that takes place in politics. And with that, I think it's very important to actually get out and vote local, because you actually want to get people in office who mean what they say. And you don't want people in office, or you don't want people to be city leaders who pander to get a certain vote. And you do want people to be city leaders who not only care, like, I guess to put it in a sense, you want people in office who actually care about black lives and just not black votes. And as a result, I think it's very important for people in the Linden community and every community in Columbus to pay attention to that and actually self-educate, read a lot, just do research. Don't listen to people who have no fruit on their tree. So that, again, I'm kind of, like I said, in a unique position, because I grew up in the Linden area. I grew up on the other side of law enforcement. I grew up listening to my family members who had no fruit on their tree. And as a result, I understood, hey, why am I taking advice from somebody who actually doesn't know? So once I started doing research for myself and finding things out for myself, that's where like doors started to open that wouldn't have opened before, because I was being blinded by what I was being told by the media, by family members, by people who actually didn't have the answer and didn't have my best interest in mind. So that would be something that I would recommend. And to anybody who's approaching the age of becoming a police officer, it just so happens today is the opening of our application period the entire month of July, and I always implore people to come be the police. I've always been the type of person that instead of complaining about it, if I wanted to change something, I'm going to do something about it. And because in my opinion, complaining gets you nowhere. But again, instead of complaining about it, come do something about it. And for all the people who may think that we're not about the right things, who may think like that they could do a better job, I'm imploring them to apply, come be the police officers, come do something about it, be that change you want to see, especially here in our city. So I'm not sure if that answered the question. I kind of went on a rant, but.
Officer Chung, I wonder, it seems more and more, especially in these past 5 weeks, there has become a fracture between the citizens of a city and the police departments. And I don't know if it was as wide 5 weeks ago, but maybe because of what happened in Minneapolis, it is fracturing. How do we put it back together? How do we find ways toward progress of bringing more peace and understanding and respect for each other?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to own up to your mistakes. I think today's generations, unfortunately, place the blame or point the finger somewhere else, and they don't own up to their mistakes. They're not being responsible. They're not owning up to just saying, okay, yeah, I made that mistake, I did it, but instead of, no, we're going to point our finger to this group, or we're going to do this. I mean, we seen it in live from our perspective, where you have these groups downtown that are they're out for the same reason, supposedly, but yet they point fingers at each other as to who's in control or what message they need to convey, and then something goes south and it's that group's fault. They're not owning the fact that they're also involved or a participant for whatever their message is that they're trying to convey. So if you don't own it, then, and then find a solution. Don't just sit there and scream and shout and do things, point fingers. Where's your solution? Back it up with a solution. As Yvonne said, if you don't have any fruit on your trees, then what are you doing? You're blowing hot air. You're getting people worked up. But if you're not going to be a part of the solution, or you're not going to have that solution that people can follow, then step aside. I have plenty of people that we have plenty of pro-police. We have plenty of people that are with their different movements, but it's frustrating for me, because my neighborhood, the people that are in my my network, my bubble, whatever, they're all about, yeah, we support, yet they sit and they don't do enough. You can be a social media warrior and tell us that you support, but if you're not going to go out, you're not going to talk to city council, you're not going to talk to the government, you're not going to stand up for the people that you say you support, well, once again, you're just pointing a finger. So it's, I balance a fine line there as well, because I appreciate everybody. I give everyone an opportunity. And then back to the original question.
How do we bring?
So to bridge that gap, obviously, like I said, own it. And for people that don't understand what we go through as officers, or what people go through, in their lives with their complaints or their troubles or whatnot, people need to put people and physically get into their shoes. We've always encouraged people that are untrustworthy or dislike what we do or not happy with the results that police officers, may come to that decision. We say, well, if you don't like it, join us. You don't have to, yes, it's important to sign up and to try and become a police officer, because it's not an easy process. But come and do a ride-along, We're always open, because I would love to have you in my car for 8 hours to see everything that we go through. With everything that's going on today, we are worked harder and harder. Every officer out there is exhausted. And I honestly have never looked forward to my vacation more than what's coming up, because I'm just going to step away. It's hard. When we're running shorthanded because we have to take our regular, staffing and split them to downtown to be on standby, to deal with now our hospital. We have hospital guard duties that have escalated because of the violence that has also escalated. So therefore, we're watching more people in hospitals who aren't able to immediately, go to jail for their crimes or whatnot. That takes away from our staffing that the communities that we signed up to patrol, help, and be a part of. They're not getting what they need. So I know, because I'm on the hilltop, we are very busy. Second shift, hilltop is busy. We hear from all the citizens, where have you been? Where have you been? It's tough. Because we actually, the reason why we work in the areas that we choose to work in, especially if it's an inner city or a suburb or wherever you choose, it's because we choose to be there for the people. We want to make an impact in that community, and people don't understand that unless you actually live in that community, and there's not enough positive interaction that gets publicized. But I'm pretty sure that everyone in my area is appreciative. When we drive down the streets, we'll wave to everybody sitting on a porch. Some of the return waves are not the most generous, but we still continue. We move on with a smile. It's those kids that you see running around the street that don't have shoes, don't have, that aren't clean, or they're not raised properly, or they're just not in a perfect environment. That maybe I grew up in the suburbs, so in my world everything was pretty and clean and all this stuff. But and that's that's truth. But I choose to work in not to downside where I work, but a dirty environment, and I want to make a difference. I want to give that kid an opportunity. I want to encourage them to do, good things, finish school. They say, how can I be a police officer? Well, first get through school, get through your basic school, and then we, stay out of trouble. Those are the two most basic things you can do, right? Your background and everything, it's been proven that, people surrounding you, can influence it, but you as a person, if you want to make a difference, you're going to go after it. So if you put yourselves in our shoes and go out on those calls and deal with the types of things and witness the things, bad parenting, domestic violence, accidents involving, drunk people or intoxicated people, people under the influence of things. I know one day we had two vehicle crashes. One was a car that was flipped. The guy was so intoxicated, but he swore that he was hit by another car, which there was no other car, and his car was flipped on its side. It's just these things we have to deal with constantly. I think the other day we also had 4 shooting scenes. They weren't all in, 2 of them were accidental shootings where youth shot themselves, and 2 were obviously suicide, well, not obvious, but suicide attempts where, people were taking guns to their heads. And that's what we deal with in one day. So there's a lot of chaos. We go from waving to people to dealing with people that are in severe crisis. And it's just a balancing act, and we have to go home. We have to deal with our personal decompression. We have to deal with our families. My son doesn't sleep until I come home. So.
And Matt, if you don't mind me just kind of piggybacking off of that regarding bridging the gap, I think something that the black culture in particular has to do is to educate on multiple different aspects, and the biggest one is with policing. Like if you look at different cultures, the black culture is the only culture where it's not a good thing to be a police officer. I don't think that's by mistake. I think that's something that was probably put in place, back way before I was born, back 40s, 50s, 60s, things like that. But if you look at it, the black culture is the only culture where it's not a good thing to be a police officer. And how do you, further perpetuate that? You get that culture to dislike police. And again, I think our city leaders could do a better job of ending that. And the other thing that I want people to pay attention to is every time a white officer shoots or kills a black person, it is posted, it is plastered all over the media. But if you look at the statistics, white officers or police officers in general, they don't just shoot and kill black people. There's multiple times where they have to use deadly force, but the only time you hear about it is when it's a black person. There's a reason for that, and that's the thing that I would like to bring to the attention of everybody in the community is pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to the pandering. Pay attention to the political posturing. Just on the radio today, like this is way off topic, but it's just insane. It just shows you that people in politics will cave just to try to stay in that position to get those votes. They took down the Columbus statue, Christopher Columbus statue, because that's going to solve what? That's going to end the wage gap. That's going to end systemic racism, bringing that statue down. Like really? Like if that's not pandering, if that's not posturing, reimagining public safety, how about we reimagine supporting the police officers in Columbus the way that we need to be supported in order to end crime? I also want to put out there to the younger members in the community, don't be a follower, be a leader. Don't follow everyone else. It's one thing to get out here and scream at the top of your lungs to us, which we all know, but Black Lives Matter, we get it. But why don't those Black Lives matter when it happens in the hood? Why will you sit there and scream at us, Black Lives Matter, but then when we come to you for info after you witnessed a black life take another black life, you won't say anything about it? Like it's really upsetting. And again, having that unique perspective, making it from the back of a cruiser to the front of one, I have a different perspective, a kind of a 360 view on how we're just kind of lied to in the inner city. We're lied to, we're kind of held down here by people pointing the finger at other people. The people holding us down here are the ones pointing the finger and making it seem like it's the person over there's fault, and it's just, that's not the case. We're lied to in the inner city, we're lied to in the poverty-stricken communities, and I just really want people to pay attention. And again, I think it's very important to get out and vote and put people in city leadership positions who are actually going to put their money where their mouth is. And another thing regarding our division, I keep hearing city leaders talk about diversity through the ranks. And it's like I'm still waiting on them to put their money where their mouth is regarding that, because it has yet to happen. And there's not much to do. There's not much that they can do regarding how our testing and things like that are set up. But I'll just come out and say it. You got 2 minority officers at 30 and 31 on this list. And there's rumors that spread rampant. But supposedly this defunding or whatever they're going to do with us, it's going to hold up promotions. Well, if you don't get the number 30 and 31 on the list, city leaders of our city, it's all lip service, because you talk about diversity through the ranks, but if you guys want to hold up promotions, you guys want to do all those things behind the scenes that puts us at a disadvantage, it's all lip service. So
So you're nodding your head on a few things there. I just, I wonder, because 23 years on the force, just going back to kind of what Levon was mentioning, with with the inner city and maybe their frankly, sometimes it's hatred of police officers. How much does that hurt? One, does that hurt? And then 2, what can be done? What should be done?
I'm taken back every time somebody comes up to me in a store and I'm in uniform and they say, you know what, officer, I want to thank you for your service. I really do. Thank you. You guys be safe out there. But that is what I call the silent majority. I think the majority of Columbus love police. I think they know that we're there when we're needed. But again, we don't see anything except for silence. They won't step out and say, hey, why are you guys giving them such a bad rap? Why are you treating them like they're the officers in Minnesota? Why? I don't understand that. And even on our, the intranet page, where we get the letters, positive letters, I think there's a total of 7 or 9. And you guys all know, we get people that come up to us and say, thank you for your service, but those aren't the people that we're hearing from. We're not hearing it out there with the community or with the leaders. These are people that should go out and encourage, hey, I've never had a problem with an officer, or, yeah, I had a problem with an officer, I talked about it, but the majority of Columbus, I think, are pro-police. I really do. I don't think, I think right now with the situation and what's going on, I think people are just jumping on a bandwagon and taking advantage of illegal things. I mean, let's face it, there are people out here protesting, but there's also people that are looting stores, tearing up things. They're being flown in from different places. I don't even believe half the people that destroyed. I was working down at Broad High, and I was outside a building, went inside. Within minutes, someone had bashed in the windows of Heartland Bank. And, I was told that there's people that are just paying people to go out and do this. And that these people are coming from Dayton, New Jersey, all over the place. And they're just coming to destroy something that we're going to have to build up later. That the citizens of Columbus are going to have to use their taxes, or we're going to have to pay for this. So I honestly just think, like you said, I think that we need to start hearing more positive things from the people that are coming up to us in stores and saying, hey, we love you guys. Watch your back, officer. I get so many people saying that to me that I want to say, well, why don't you ever call in? Call into the police department.
Right.
Let them know what you think of us, especially with it being positive. I don't get it. I mean, you'd rather stay silent and let the leaders treat us the way that they're treating us now, because we deserve better. I mean, we've always been there for you. Some of us go sleep deprived.
That's what I was gonna say. What's this do for your mental psyche? Because I know it's tough out. I can only imagine from watching the videos we see. During the morning show, I see protesters yelling at police officers, and I know police officers. You're trained. You can't respond. Probably the way you would want to.
You're better off to be silent. You're better off to be silent when they're like that. It does a lot, and quite honest, I was down at Broad High. I work sex crimes involving children. So my job is really, I'm not saying anybody's job is any less, but I do felony paperwork on pedophiles. So that's hard enough. That's hard enough that someone's out there hurting a child, and I'm trying to get this person off the street, because they're not just going to hurt this one, but they're going to go into the next one. But when I'm out at Broad High and I'm having bricks tossed at me in riot gear on a hot day, that I almost feel like I'm going to pass out. You know what? I think in my mind, you know what, Lisa, you're out here for the people, the good people. Your mom's at home, your brother's at home. Our families are safe at home or they're at work. But I'm out here taking all this because I know there are good people out there, and I know people care about us. But it does have a lot on it really does. I'm 57 and I don't sleep. I hardly sleep. I'm talking probably average 4 hours a day. And I know other people they're deprived of it. And like Chung and Levon said, we're overworked. I've got people calling me on the phone wanting to know where special duty's at. And I'm like, are you not watching the news?
Right.
Are you not watching the news?
Right.
You know what? You come out here, you stand in the riot gear, you let people call you everything and still not be able to respond. I don't get it. Like I said, most of the people in Columbus love us, but they're the silent majority.
agree. I think something else that needs to be put out there is, again, with the divisive rhetoric, everything is trying to be made about race. Just to bring back up Minneapolis, I'm of the opinion that that officer did not do that to George Floyd because George Floyd was black. I felt like that officer did that to George Floyd because that officer is not a good human being. I think that's what that comes down to, and it's just outright disgusting that, again, city leadership won't come out and say that. They'll continue the divisive rhetoric. The other thing is what people need to know about police officers in every city, but especially here in the city of Columbus, is we are the good guys. We're not the bad guys. We're the good guys. We're always going to be the good guys. We are here to help the same people who are throwing bricks at us and vandalizing and looting. When they need us, we don't care what color they are, we don't care what creed they are, we don't care what sexual preference they have, we come, all right? So when they call us, we come running. We don't care about any of that stuff, you know? We don't care what kind of criminal activity you've done before. We don't care what you're involved in. We don't care to an extent that you're a pedophile. If you need help, we are going to come help you because that's what we do. This job is a calling, this profession is a freaking calling. You know, it's not for the thin skin, but with that, people need to understand that we don't look at race. You know, when we get a call saying, hey, you know, my husband just beat the crap out of me, we don't say, well, hey, is that a white lady or a black lady? And is the husband white or black or Asian or something else? We just come, you know, because that's what we're supposed to do. When we make arrests, we don't do it based off of race. You know, we do it based off of the crime, based off of different elements of the crime. So I just want to put that out there. And then something else I don't want to speak. Obviously, I'm biracial. I identify as black, but I've cut my family members off a long time ago just because I felt it was easier to not deal with the nonsense. You know, it's easier for me and my family that I'm growing and raising and bringing up the right way just not to deal with it. But I think it's a very difficult time right now for black officers because they're getting it from both sides. They're getting it from the public and they're also getting it from family members. Again, I'm not me, but I've heard other officers speak on it, and I think it's just insane to have to deal with that. And I think, again, city leadership could do a better job in ending that and just cutting it out. And, you know, if the rest of the nation wants to burn their cities, let them do it. It doesn't need to happen here in Columbus. We don't have those issues here in Columbus. And again, if you pay attention to the politics, it's an election year. Look at the posturing, look at the pandering. The other thing I want people to pay attention to are the violent crimes. Watch what's going to happen in our city because of what has happened and because our city leadership has failed to come out and do the right thing and, you know, stop the divisive rhetoric. Watch the homicides, unfortunately the homicides, we may break the record this year, watch. And I want people to pay attention to that and understand why that happens, why that's going to happen.
Another thing about bridging the gap in the community, what people also have overshadowed are the things that we currently as officers on our own time get involved in. You know, I know there's programs out there, there's TAPS programs, there's officers that make contact in the community with a person in need that need more than just that service call. Okay, so we'll go out to a house, or, you know, especially during Christmas time, I know I ran into an individual, she had a big old domestic with her mother and got so upset she walked out with her microwave and 3 kids in tow. Okay, it was cold, the weather wasn't great, and she was going to walk with this microwave that she could barely carry and keep track of 3 kids all the way to the bus stop so she can get back to the east side, from the west side to the east side with a microwave. Okay, I talked to her and I said, look, you know, I understand things aren't working out with you and your mom, whatnot. Let me figure out what we can do to help. At least let me get you a ride so you don't have to get on the bus with a, you know, this. It's materialistic, a microwave, but she's got 3 kids traveling with her. They're like, Mommy, why are we leaving all this stuff? Why are you taking this? And because your grandma ain't gonna have this and that, and, you know, she ain't gonna have anything of mine, blah, blah, blah. So what? Okay, took her back. So I took her home, and when I got there, it was, you know, it was on the east side, close to the King Arts Complex, is all I remember. And walked her up to her door to make sure that everything was going to safe, helped her carry that microwave, and I opened that door. There was nothing in that house. You know, it's a Section 8 housing. And so that's when I reached out to people and said, hey, look, this woman, she's trying. She got a part-time job, but she also doesn't want to get a full-time job because she'll lose her benefits, her government benefits. So there's a balancing act there as to, you know, how they want to do that. But I reached out to some friends with the Starfish assignment that, you know, we gave them furniture, we gave her clothes, we gave her food. We also found an opportunity for her to get a real job so she could sustain herself, you know, And that's, that's not even about race, that's about caring. Okay. The other thing, prior, we haven't even been able to start this, but I think a lot of my colleagues agree that in order to curb crime and all this violence that involve all these teenagers and youth, is to give them opportunities to have more interaction with us, to be the parent that they may or may not actually have, or teach them, put them in the right direction that says this is the wrong path, this is the right path, and kind of be that parent figure for them. And yes, they have to still go home to who are their parents or the people that are raising them, but at the same time you give them to start turning that that wheel and saying, okay, this is fun, this is cool, I like it. Right before coronavirus started, we had this group called the Urban Lacrosse Academy. And once again, I said I am a big lacrosse proponent person because it's been in my life. I've met a lot of people and done a lot of things through lacrosse. Okay, lacrosse used to be and still kind of is, and I guess more of a suburban type of high end. You have a little money to play it, that type of elite sport. But that's changed over the years, obviously. And we had the Urban Lacrosse Academy, and we focused on Windsor STEM and Afrocentric. Okay, a group of police officers with lacrosse experience or coaching experience have all volunteered to go out and give an hour of their time to tutor these kids, and then after that hour's up, to go play lacrosse and teach them about lacrosse and life, for an hour and a half. And that was all set, and the plan was there. Our city council was on board with it, and it's all about going back to the youth. We have our TAPS program. We have plenty of officers that just volunteer. Officer Johnson's always acting with the youth. Why? It's because we care about the youth, and if we set them on the right path, then they can help the following generations. They're going to help their peers, or choose to stay away from the peers that get them in trouble. They're going to find all the positive things in life that they deserve. And so it's just more support into those programs. All these officers, they don't volunteer because it's they want to give back to the community. They care about their communities. That's the thing that people have to understand. We're out here, we protect, we serve, and we rebuild our communities.
So I want to get to you real quick, because you're a police officer, your brother is, your father is, or I don't know if he still is, might be retired. But from your perspective, is it harder to be a police officer now than maybe when it was when your dad was doing it in the 60s, 70s? I mean, is it harder? Are you seeing the relationship change? I don't know the best way to ask the question.
Right now, I mean, I can almost, due to the recent events, I can almost feel a parallel of what my father experienced as being a police officer back in the 60s with the racism and different things like that. So it's almost like a parallel. I kind of feel some of the rhetoric, the insults, the ridicule that my dad felt, back in the 60s. So, but 23 years ago, when I became a police officer, no, it was a good thing to be the police at that time. But now it's resurfaced that we still have issues between us and the community. And just like LaVon said, we as blacks, we're the only culture that it's not a good thing to be the police. And I don't understand why. Because I don't know about you, but some people that are raised in the inner city and then they call the police, I think that they would be more than happy just to see someone that maybe look like them or maybe have some type of background if they were raised in the inner city. And I think that that's a good thing, but somehow, some way we've gotten away from that as a black community. And I'm kind of like really concerned about that because I get it. Why are you a police officer? You're black. Okay, so is the police department supposed to be all white? Exactly. Really? So that being said, it is hard because I've heard it, but I'm not scared of the police, or, you you black and you the police? Why are you the police? You're Uncle Tom. You're a sellout. You're this, you're that. But just like Lisa said, you know, we think about the silent majority, but the silent majority is not speaking up. We're speaking up because we're forced to speak, and we have to speak. So that being said, we would love the backing of the silent majority. But yes, to answer your question, I think I feel some of the pressure, maybe not direct pressure that my father felt because he dealt with racism. I think I'm dealing with it on a more graduated level. Racism is something that it's like, I was told a long time ago, and I thought about it on my own. I came to my own conjecture that racism is something that matures. So maybe in my father's stage, it was elementary. Now racism has a doctoral degree. I mean, and then it's working for and against us, like LaVon was speaking of earlier. And it's not a good thing. This is not the climate where people are, no, I'm not going to be the police. And in the inner city, nope, you're not going to be a police officer. You're not. You're black, nope, you're not going to be a police officer. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. But you want to make a difference. And that to me is it's the most ridiculous thing that a parent can ever tell a child, a black child. No, you're not going to be a police officer. You're going to be a sellout. You're going to be this. You're going to be labeled. It's going to be hard. Yes, is it hard being a black police officer? Oh, absolutely, it is. But just like I said earlier, if I could change the opinion of one person, and I read a good book, if one can chase 1,000, two can chase 10,000. So if I can chase two, and that two reaches 10,000 people, it's worth the sacrifice. Because just like Ed said, we do go through a lot. You go from saving a baby to looking at someone breathe their last breath, doing an accident report where a car is on its top, riding up and doing guard duty on someone that's no longer with us, going to see grandma after she's received mail for the last 3 weeks, and now you're going in there, you're breaking down the doors, you got the worst nightmare movie or horror picture that you can ever witness, and you're stepping over this person that's been gone for like 3 or 4 weeks, and you're doing all this in one day. But to the city leaders, you want to defund the police department? You want to hire a social worker to handle somebody that may be suicidal? So we're trained as police officers. If you're suicidal, you're also homicidal. So if you have a social worker go in where police are needed, because right now the social workers call the police department. They call us and they say, my client is suicidal. They will not go in there without us. They won't even attempt to talk to that client without us. So you got people that want to defend the people, city officials that want to defund the police department, when really you're going to send that social worker into a suicide mission. And it's not until, and I know that's never going to happen, but why even talk about something? You're beating a dead horse. It's not going to happen.
So what's coming up now, which is maybe police officers have to respond to too many things, too many variety of things that maybe we could, whether it's send a social worker to or a counselor to, name whatever it is. Do you not agree with that, I guess? Or is it just a matter of it's too dangerous? I don't know. What?
Well, we have units in place that go with counselors, like people from that care and different things like that. And they're teamed up with a police officer. So that's already in place with the Columbus Missouri Police. Now, if city officials thinks that's something that needs to be increased, then it's quite elementary. We don't need to talk about defunding. We probably need to put the funding in building up that unit. You know what I'm saying? So don't say, independent of a police officer, I'm going to send in a social worker, because that's, I'll say it, that's pure ignorance. It's what's that?
It's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. So I was always taught that you put certain ingredients to make a cake, you're not going to leave out the sugar. We're the sugar. So you leave the sugar in, but if you want to talk about funding and redirecting funding as it relates to people that are in crisis, and you want to send in a social worker, you better have somebody in there that's got your back. And that person that got your back is a police officer. And because I don't think the social worker, although they may see some things similar to us, I guarantee you in 5 years they will not have any inkling or a finite clue of what we've seen. It's not going to happen because we have experience. Like a lot of stuff that I've experienced in 23 years, a person has not experienced in 50 lifetimes. I lost track of how many dead bodies I've seen. I lost track of how many kids that I've taken to the morgue and bodies that I've taken to the morgue. Lost track. When someone is, you go. I went to a scene a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately, someone's mom had passed away. They were going crazy. Just magnify that times 10, and it's your own mom or your own dad. As a police officer, you're dealing with that because my father's no longer here. I had to see his body. Think about me. Think about what I had to go through. Now I'm taking care of your relative, and then somebody else's relative, and somebody else's relative. And just like LaVon said, when we get to these calls for service, we're not thinking about if you're a racist or if you're a freaking Ku Klux Klan member or Black Lives Matter. We're not looking at the prerequisite to service you. We just want to service you.
Almost done. Almost done. It's got one more one. I want to give people who still may be questioning where this is going to go, because if every weekend we still see protesters and police, not so much clashing, but in each other's face, or things getting a little testy, if we're ever going to see the end, I guess is the good word, just some peace out there, and not just and hope obviously nationwide, but I just want to center this on Columbus. What gives you hope? What gives you that belief that either we're making progress or we're going to get there to where there's that great respect on both sides? And maybe it is there. Like you said, the silent majority, as you mentioned. It is there, but we're just not hearing it. What do you want to see? What gives you hope?
Difficult is very unfortunate right now that our chain of command, I can't say it, but our chain of command, they can't operate because of, I'd say, the bigger government. So with that, it puts us all in a bad spot. Again, this could have been ended a while ago. Again, all of us police officers, we are all for the peaceful protest. I've been down multiple times, especially when I was a bike officer, on peaceful protests. And it's like, we want you to protest. We are happy that you're protesting. Even if it's against us, we are okay with that, but don't vandalize, do not violate the law, stay out of the street. And for this the thing, there's protesters, then there's rioters, and there's criminals, okay? It's not fair to the people who do want to peacefully protest and they want to get down there, they want to hold their signs and get their message out there. It's not fair to them when the looters, the rioters, and the criminals come and they intermingle. For us, it's hard to tell who's who, because some of the protesters are angry, hostile, which just because you're hostile with your words doesn't mean you're not being a peaceful protester. In a sense, do what you want to do regarding the protesting. However, stay out of the street, just follow the laws. If we give you a command, just listen to it. There's a good reason for it. And also, we're not down there. I think that's the thing, this whole demilitarization thing, our riot gear. We're not down there to do anything to the protesters. The reason that we go down there during these protests is for the safety of the people, for the safety of the protesters, especially if you have opposing sides. You may have a Second Amendment protest going on where you're going to have people down there for gun rights who are open carrying and doing all that stuff, and then you're going to have people who don't want those people to have guns and things like that. We are down there to keep the peace. That's what we are down there for the protection of the public, the property, things like that. So I think that's what people need to realize. We're not coming down there to battle protesters. That's not what we're coming down there for. We're not sent down there to battle protesters, but as of recent, this last month, things have gotten out of control to where we do have to take action. As far as being ordered to stand down, the time that I was down there, that didn't happen, but I've been down there rarely because I'm one of the officers that have stayed back to try to take care of the precinct. But just to let the public know, we've been on, ever since the protests / riots have started, we've been on something called run restrictions where, like Detective McKissick said, we can't get to certain calls for service because of our staffing, because the majority of our officers are downtown trying to, keep the city from burning, and as a result, it's really taken away from the people in the community. And the majority of the people downtown that are causing the issues, they're not from Columbus, they're not from our community. And I think, we as police officers would like to see help from the community members of weeding them out, kicking them out of there, because they're not down there for good. They're down there to wreak havoc. They're down there to, turn our city into some of the other big cities that you see that aren't doing well, that do look like third world countries. That's what they're down there to do. And we'd like to see, a public response that they're not going to stand for. Protest against the rioters, protest against the looters as well. Get them out of there. The sooner we get them out of there, the sooner we can resume the new normal. We're all for change. We're all for protesting, but again, we need to do it the right way. Breaking stuff, making it so the state, they're talking about turning Columbus, like I just heard it on the radio this morning. I live really far. I live really far away, so about an hour away. So I gotta listen. But no, I heard Larry Householder, the House Speaker, speaking about making it so Columbus isn't the capital anymore. Like that would be drastic to our economy here in Columbus. And it's like it shouldn't get to that point, So sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, bottom line is we all should give respect to each other, and as long as we are respectful, I don't think that we'd be having the problems that we have now, regardless of your color.
So the other thing is our leadership is talking about reform. City council wants reform. The mayor wants reform. They want to change how we as a police department are perceived and do everything. What I think the important message for them to understand is all of our officers are already about community policing. It's already in place. They can talk about we need more community policing, we need more friendliness, we need more kindness towards the people. We already do that. Like I said, anytime, put yourself in our shoes. See the people that we interact with on a daily basis in our normal routine, okay? See the chaos, see the drama that we deal with, okay? The citizens that are fighting because the dogs are barking. We respond, and we have to, mediate that and say, okay, well, let's figure out, why your dog is doing this. These are complaints we deal with, but it's their crisis. Your citizens are in crisis because of your neighbor's dog. And we deal with it. We do community policing. We're out there every day, and that's our normal routine. So talking about reform, and we need to do more to interact with our citizens, we actually already do it. They just don't see it. So until
It's never advertised. No one ever talks about
we can do 1,000 good things, and the one bad thing just tarnishes it. And you can't build, for me, you can, like I said, a million things right, and the one wrong thing just changes everyone's perspective, and that's not actually the truth.
Give you the final word.
We'll try to. But at any rate, at the end of the day, we're going to be the police. We're going to protect you. We took an oath. We're going to protect you regardless if you talk about us, regardless if you protest against us, regardless if you throw bricks at us, regardless if you call us names, regardless if you call us a sellout, regardless if you call us an Uncle Tom, regardless to any way that you may have any ill will towards us, we're going to be the police at the end of the day. If you violate the law, we're going to enforce the law. We're going to be there. And the city officials, I believe they know that at the end of the day. To talk about defunding the police department, I think is a really good fairy tale book to be published. I don't think it's realistically going to happen. We have too many delicate situations, and a lot of people do not want to acknowledge the police department until they need the police department. In every aspect of life, to some degree, you need the police. So, positively speaking, say what you want to say about the police department. Throw bricks at us, spit at us, call us out our name. But at the end of the day, we're going to be there, regardless. And that's the positive side of it. No matter what you do to us, we're not dying. We're like the roaches that I had in Detroit when I was a kid. We're not going nowhere. We don't care if you exterminate us. We don't care if you tear the house down. I've seen roaches go from one house to the next house, use the driveway. We're going to be there. So we're. No, not us. Not us as roaches. I'm just saying the resiliency as a police department. We're going to be there. So we have that resilient culture. I don't think we're going anywhere because I don't think we can have a society minus the police department, minus, because I tell people this all the time. I was a federal correctional officer before I became a police officer. And one thing that inmates used to always say to me, if I didn't commit this crime, you wouldn't have a job. I said, okay. I said, all right. I said, but listen, let me say this to you. Is there a good person? I'm like, yes. Is there a bad person? I'm like, yes. As long as there's a good person, as long as there's a bad person, there's always going to be a need for justice. God is a person of justice. He has delegated us, he has called us to this profession to embrace the field of being justice peacekeepers. So we are the justice. We are the ones that's woke in the middle of the night. We are the ones that go into calls for service when bullets are coming at us and people are running away. We're running to the threat. We are the ones that pick up that woman after she's been raped. We're the ones that take care of that child after that child has been molested. We're the ones that pick up the gangbanger and embrace the gangbanger and say, well, hey, we got to be able to understand the police department. You don't understand. I've been in your shoes before. We're the ones that do that. We're the ones that, hey, if a person is in need and they need furniture, clothes, they need transportation, we're there. But at the end of the day, we do this out of the kindness of our heart because we're good people. And we just so happen to be police officers. So we're good people that just so happen to be the police. But at the end of the day, we're going to be here regardless. Whether the city council wants us or not, or whether those leaders want to defund us or not. And I know you can probably scratch that if you want to. But anyway, at the end of the day, we don't care how you feel about us. We don't care how you mistreat us. We don't care. I try not to listen to the media. I try not to like people say, well, did you hear what that city council member said? No, I didn't. I wasn't listening. Because at the end of the day, when I get out here and I get in my cruiser and they dispatch me to a call for service, I'm not thinking about what they say about me. I'm doing my job. Now, if you disable me from doing my job, then that's a whole different level. But one thing you're not going to do, tomorrow, when I wake up, I'm still going to have this badge. I'm still going to have this gun. I'm still going to be the police. I'm going to be on vacation, though, but I'm still going to be the police. Because I'm looking forward to my vacation. But at the end of the day, we're going to be the police. And until, all parties are heard, and at the end of the day, police are not going anywhere. Why entertain something that's unentertainable? Why conceive? I mean, last I checked, people don't have fins, so why are we talking about something that's not going to exist? So at the end of the day, I don't care what you say about us, we're going to be the police.